Welcome everybody to the call. This is Tina and I'm here with Pat, and of course you've been talking with Shelley. And I have some bad news, at least from my perspective, from our perspective, which is that our ETV manager, Nate, who was going to do a very interesting presentation on coaching young men, unfortunately fell ill and is not able to present tonight, and he left me his much too incomplete, to my opinion, notes. So, but we have talked about it a lot, and I think we have pretty much, as a group of people who talk to students all the time. Hello, who just joined us?
Hi, this is Dorothy McKay.
Welcome, Dorothy.
Thank you.
Anyway, we have just started, but what I was saying was that we have pretty much come to the conclusion that there's not much difference in talking to young men and engaging young men. It's really more engaging sort of disenfranchised young people who say they are interested and maybe are not as interested as they might have thought. Young people who have so many issues that communicating with a volunteer coach is not necessarily their top priority. And that, I think, I really do think that at this point that's the minority of our students. We try very hard to only encourage students to apply. Well, what we do is we give them a couple of small hoops that they have to go through. We don't just say, you know, wow, having a coach is fantastic, so you know, do you want one? Yes. Oh, here you go. We have them watch a video. We have them do an application. We have them send an email. And it's really after they've done these three things that we feel, well, they are somebody who is interested. So we do start out with students that we hope are interested. That's and the other thing, and I do really apologize to all of you. It is going to be a little bit of a discombobulated talk tonight, because, as I said, I was not expecting to do it, and it's the busiest time of the year for us. Our scholarship application opens at midnight tonight. So, but anyway. So I think that you guys are in the middle of the year, and hopefully most of you have made connection with your students. Can I ask how you all are feeling before I continue to talk? How you all are really feeling about talking with your students? How is it going? If someone can start.
For me, it's going well. I have a young man, and sometimes I run out of things to talk to him about or ask him about. So I'd appreciate just ideas in general on kind of conversation starters.
Okay.
He says everything's fine. So, you know, everything's always fine with him. So then I'm not sure what else to ask him.
Yes, that's with one's own children too. How's school, Mom? Fine. What did you have for lunch? Food. And then the ever famous, my teacher hates me. Dear, how are the rest of you feeling about your students? And we certainly we will address this question. How are the rest of you feeling?
Well, somebody else? Oh yeah, this is Maureen. I'm doing very well with mine. Now, this is my second year with her, and she's a real go-getter. So that part is good. I mean, she will say she's fine, but she really is. She's doing phenomenal. Going back to that question, I mean, one of the things was that at first I almost felt like, well, she's got it so together. She doesn't need me as a coach because she's just going full speed ahead and really is on target. And so sometimes I would have to ask follow-up questions about how things are going. Like, try to word my questions that I wasn't just machine gunning her with a million things, but ask really directed questions about, you know, what subject you like, or what, you know, specific activities, you know, just to dig a little deeper. keep that conversation going. That was really the biggest thing for me was to, kind of get on topic. And you walk that balance between not, prying into every little detail, but encouraging to share a little bit more about, like, what was that experience like, or how did you feel, or, any of those kind of leading questions.
So do you usually have a set time and a set agenda?
No, right now, this past year, we're going to talk when she just got back this weekend, actually, from a trip to Ecuador, an exchange trip over the break. But we kind of talked about, we've done a lot, actually, by email because her schedule is so full that it's hard to find a time. She is one of these students that, just is involved in everything. And, whether it's work, whether it's school activities, she has a lot of leadership activities, her classes, and she's dead set on getting all A's and everything. So she is just jam-packed. We don't have to worry about this child engaging by any means in, her environment. She's very focused on her goals. So for her, actually, we've done a lot more emailing than would be typical of most college students. And then sometimes we do text. We don't actually talk a whole lot on the phone just because of the difficulties of trying to connect with schedules. But it works pretty well. When we have a little more time, we'll email and cut in between texts to get quick updates because that, works good for her because she's so busy. So we kind of just trade back and forth, I'll email, she'll email back, or I'll text, she'll text. There may be some lags in there. But it seems to work. Again, I think that's one of the things of finding out what works with your particular student because it is different than most of the other kids that I've worked with that age. That emailing is the last thing usually. So.
Well, emailing is nice because one can sort of think about what one is going to say a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's what I found that I would do it for a few longer things and then do the quick, hi, how are you? Because sometimes if I had a little more to say, then I didn't want her to feel that she had to write back with big, long things, knowing that she's real busy. And sometimes she would, when she had time. But that's where we found kind of a mix of both worked really well because you could put some more detail in to the email. So.
Well, I think we would love to hear from other people. Perhaps the way to do this call tonight is to hear from several of you what you are finding helpful rather than my talking about, in theory what you might do, because I certainly think that the story that we just heard that's how I would have coached a student, but I think there's many ways and many different students, and I wonder if anybody else would like to share how they are getting along with their student.
I would, because I'm actually, sometimes I think I'm having a lot of difficulty, and then sometimes I think I'm not. It's kind of like our relationship is on the both ends of a spectrum. When we actually talk on the phone, we really talk. We discuss a lot of things. She tells me about her personal life. She tells me about her school life, the troubles that she's having. I try to help her. It's really good. And when we went into a chat room, the conversation was long. There was a lot in the conversation, and it was really good. But to get to that point is frustrating because I send out emails to her. She usually doesn't email me back. I understand she doesn't have her own computer, but she is able to get on Facebook and put her posts up there. So sometimes I'll email her like 4 different times. I don't hear anything back. The one time I did some research for her because she was trying to decide what to do, so I gave her some information on 2 different majors. And I actually went to my graduate school and I got some information on the major she was interested in on an undergraduate level and graduate level because she talks a lot about going to graduate school. And I sent everything. I scanned it and I sent her links. I sent all this stuff in an email to her and she never read it, never mentioned it, until I asked a couple of times. So
What did she say when you asked?
Excuse me?
What did she say when you asked?
Oh, she says she said she appreciated it, but she hadn't gotten to it
Yeah.
yet. So I actually never heard anything more about it. And when we try to make arrangements to call, it's something gets in the way, or I don't hear from her, or I call, she's not there, and so there's a lot of false starts for us to get to a point where we can communicate. But once we start, it's really well. But to get to that point, it just seems difficult.
It sounds to me, quite honestly, that is a very typical relationship.
I was going to say that. This is Pat. That sounds like the conversation I have with my daughter,
Yes.
who's 4 hours away in college. And I can send her things through email, and she says, I don't have time to read that. If you can just tell me about it on the phone. So
Yeah.
I can kind of empathize with what you're saying.
Yes, or the other thing, we were just talking about it in the office today, that oftentimes it's a culture these days of not answering because they figure, well, duh, she sent it to me,
Yes.
she knows I
Yes.
got it. I don't need to answer. And so this young lady didn't answer you about the the materials you so kindly sent her until you asked her specifically
Yeah.
a couple of times, at which point she honestly said, well, yeah, I got it, but I didn't read it. And that really honestly sounds very typical, and I think, and I'm sure Pat will agree, that the fact that you are able, after some fits and starts and missed opportunities, that you are able actually to have really good conversations. I think that is the whole point of the
Yeah.
thing, and as long as you keep trying and she is willing and you have those great conversations, I think that you are doing a wonderful job, and it's terrific. And I would worry less about the missed opportunities than celebrating the relationship that it sounds like you really are building.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad you said that, because I don't know, I've just been worried that it's not working out, but
Yeah.
now I see that it is. So.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yep, it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were just, again, we were saying, I was talking about how I had the same thing with a young man that I used to speak with, and after I didn't hear from him for a while and I would get really worried, I would send him a text message, and the text message would say, I'm baking cookies. Do you want chocolate chip or do you want oatmeal? And that he would reply to, and
Yes.
then I would be, okay, he's alive.
Yeah.
he's okay. So, I think there's very much,
Yes.
they're busy and they have a lot of
So
things on
much.
their mind. The culture of not answering.
Yes.
When you engage, it sounds like you do a wonderful job of engaging, and that's the important thing. So,
Thank you.
who else? This is very interesting
Yeah.
to us. Who else would like to share how you are communicating with your student?
I will. I'm in the second year of a relationship with a young lady who's in New York State, and I'm in Virginia. And it's almost like an approach avoidance with her. There are times when she will initiate a phone call to me, and she's very bubbly and very friendly, and I think, oh, great, I've got her. And then the next time I initiate conversation, she pulls back. And I don't know, I rather suspect that given her background, which I know a little bit about, she's had some disappointments in establishing relationships that fall apart. And so she has some trust issues that I try to respect. And I'm very aware that she has established her own lines, her demarcation lines, that she prefers I not cross unless I get a very clear invitation. So I don't ask her a lot of questions other than where are you going for Christmas, and will you be at your aunt's house, and are you going back to New York, that sort of thing. That's very delicate. I don't have an invitation from her
Go ahead.
Did you want to
No.
say, Pat?
Go ahead.
The first thing that I wanted to say was, as soon as you said she calls me, I thought this is wonderful. Because that is a huge step, especially for someone who doesn't trust people and who has had many broken relationships. Clearly, she is on her way and quite far to trusting you, because she would never call you if she didn't know that she was going to get the kind of a response that will be warm and helpful and supportive. So that's awesome that she calls you.
It makes me happy when
yes.
she does.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's like a breakthrough.
Yes.
And the second thing is that she's calling you to ask for advice.
Yeah.
So that's another thing, that she is, at some point, she is trusting you.
Yeah.
To ask you for some help.
Yeah, yeah, and the other thing that I would say perhaps is one of the best ways to draw people out is, and I'm sure you know this, and I'm sure you do this, is by talking about yourself. And then you can say, oh, I'm doing this at Christmas, and I'll be thinking about you, because I care about where you are or whatever. But by talking about yourself in the way that is pertinent to your student, But
So I took your counsel from our before Christmas conversation, and I did exactly what you said. I went to Target. They had the little Christmas trees that are pre-wired with little lights on them, and I sent it to her with a $10 bill, I think I put in it, and some candy, just some candy. She called the day she got it. She was so excited by that tree. So
oh, I am so glad.
I'm going to look for something for spring, because I
It's a good idea.
suspect by spring it'll be time to send another little something small, just to let her know she's important in my life.
That's great.
Well, I had that makes me feel really happy.
Yep.
That's
Good, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
yes. And that is a very good suggestion for coaches as well. Our students generally don't get things in the mail. People don't anyway, write cards and letters so much these days. But I have found many times over the year that just a card, I take construction paper and I cut out little hearts. And to cut out the little heart and write on it, I'm thinking about you. It's Monday, and oh my gosh, it's Monday again, and I'm thinking about you. Popping it in the mail is such a special thing, and they'll take a little card from you if you go on a trip and you send them a card from San Francisco or whatever, and you find out that those things like that are kept for years and years and years. Many years ago, I sent a girl a birthday card, and years later she still had it because she said it was the first birthday card she ever got.
Yep.
So sending them a little something in the mail is really a nice thing to do. So I'm so glad about that Christmas tree. That makes me very happy.
She was so happy.
So
I have a question.
yes.
I was under the impression that the only kind of contact we were supposed to have was either phone or email. I actually didn't know that we could send them cards, and I thought we weren't supposed to actually send them anything. So we can send them little gifts.
Yes, we're coaches are not supposed to meet their students in person. That is a very strict parameter of this program. But you can absolutely send them. You can, well, first of all, you can communicate with them on Facebook and Skype and all these other new things, Instagram and Snapchat and Twitter, and any way that you find you are able to draw your student out and communicate and have a relationship is fine. And certainly sending them a card. We would have a constraint. I think I don't know, Shelley. Perhaps you know. It's I think $20,
25.
$20 or $25. but a gift certificate in the mail, a card in the mail, you know, a little lit up Christmas tree.
Yep.
Small things like that really, really can be greatly appreciated. And you never know, one day your student might send you something.
That's good. I actually didn't know. I mean, I knew about the Facebook and everything, and that's on the report. So I did know about the Facebook and Instant Messenger and everything, but I just didn't know that there could be stuff sent back and forth through the mail, and I didn't know that I could get her anything.
So, well, you are very welcome to, you know, send her some little thing. It's very nice. I had a student that I saw through his whole undergraduate, and I didn't miss a Monday. Always sent him something in the mail, just 2 lines in a card, and that you know, that's a really good thing to do. So, who else has we can, if I interrupt quickly, we can go forward and I can talk a little bit. I have a piece of paper here and it talks about a book that you might read. It does talk, my piece of paper, a little bit about how the one thing that we together decided was a difference between coaching young men and young women. So I can talk a little bit if you'd like, but I am finding hearing from you fascinating and wonderful.
Well, I'll
Well,
chime
I
in.
was.
I was driving, so I had to pull over. But I sent a lot of cards to my person I'm in contact with and tried to do the encouraging things. I'm an old-fashioned card guy. And he seems to respond pretty well to that when I make an effort to do so.
It's a great thing to get a card in the mail.
Yeah.
They're used to getting bills,
Yeah,
if anything,
Yeah.
in the mail. So a card is just welcome.
yeah,
They love it.
yeah. So that's a good thing that you do. So
Everybody on the line is going to go rush out
And buy
to
cards.
Valentine's Day.
dear, yeah, Valentine's.
Yeah.
That's right. That's
Right.
coming up.
Coming up.
So, the scholarship program in the past, we haven't done it in a little while, but for a couple of years, we sent every single one of our 400 students a Valentine. And we said, this is a Valentine from your anonymous admirer, your secret admirer. And one of our students got that in the mail, and she was with her boyfriend in front of the door, and she opened it, and he said, "Secret admirer? Who is that?" And she said, "Oh, it's just my scholarship program." So, but who, if anybody else has any comments on how they are talking with their students, we'd love to hear this. Well, we have then a couple of things on this piece of paper. The one thing that we, in talking organizationally, really we deal with the young men and the young women pretty much in the same way as an individual. We want to be interested in you. All of the things that, you know, we're sure you already know. You ask the question that shows that you are interested. You don't want to pry. Maybe you ask them, you know, did you see the basketball game last night, or the football game, or whatever game it is, or a movie, or what kind of music do you like? And if they say, you know, I love, what's that thing called? Death metal.
Oh, okay.
They say, I love death metal, then you go, oh, wow, that is so cool. Tell me about it.
So it's something of interest.
So,
Something of interest.
yes,
to the
yes.
students, yeah.
You don't say, oh, death metal, that's horrible.
Right.
So, so talking to them really about things that interest them outside of the parameters just of school and foster care and all of that is really important. And then, but the one thing that we can tell you that, and you all as men and women probably will shake your heads just like we did and say, yeah, that makes sense. Generally speaking, men and young men and boys like to do things. If they go out with their friends, they will go for a to kick the ball around, or they will go for a hike, or they will play their video games together, and they do things together. And they also like concrete steps to achieve something. Whereas young women are much more talkers, as you obviously can hear from all how I blabber away on these calls. Women like to talk, and they like to listen to other people talk. So if you are coaching a young man and he says, as an example, I'm feeling really crappy about my roommate, then if you are dealing with a young man, perhaps you ask some specific questions. You know, what is it about your roommate? Maybe you could do this. You know, leave a note if he doesn't pick up his stinky socks, or whatever it is, and help the young man. Even I suppose when one could call it cognitive coaching, as we use, but help him step by step think things out with him. You know, if a young woman says to you, I'm not getting along with my roommate, then perhaps she more is interested in venting. And if you're talking with you know, a young woman on the phone, then and oh yeah, is really pretty good words to use, because a lot of times a young woman might really be more wanting to vent and just, you know, explain her side of it, and then after she's sort of gotten it all out of her system, then you can talk a little bit more about, well, let's, you know, maybe you can do this, or maybe you can do that. So that is the one, and Nate, the young man who is not making this presentation, unfortunately, for, you know, that was the one thing. He did a lot of research trying to find out how you coach young men, particularly how you coach African American young men, particularly, and he really did not find anything. He did a lot of research. So our best advice on that, which was supposed to be the subject of this call, is, you know, treat everybody as the lovely young individual that they are, that you really want to get to know in all of their warts and their sparkly bits. But that one thing which I got from a communications class at Northern Virginia Community College, men and young men like to have specifics and like to have a program of something to do, and young women like to vent much more, is really the most solid piece of advice that we can give you. And let's see what else. You all know that your students, having hopefully read the coaching handbook, you know, brain development where they are, that they are not very mature. They have come oftentimes from a place of trauma. They may, you know, they may act younger than their physical age, and that may be a way that you have to deal with them. You know, and again, the culture of not answering that we spoke about. What else, Pat, do you have to say?
No, one of the things that I do, I work with students in Missouri, and this is going to sound kind of weird, but what I do is I watch basketball games on the weekend and the football games from the colleges, so I know something. I can talk kind of with, you know, with a little bit of intelligence with the young men that I communicate with. So I can ask them, well, what did you think of that game? Or what did you think of the basketball game between Missouri and Auburn? I used that one today. And they were like, you watch that? Of course I do. I'm rooting for Missouri. So it gives us, it breaks the ice, and then we can talk. So that's just, I think it's a great idea.
I think it's a good idea, Pat.
Yeah, it works. So it only took me a few years to figure it out.
Better late than never.
Dear. Well, Shelley, you communicate with students a lot too. What would you say?
Just reiterating what you were saying, just showing an interest. And I find a lot of us, you know, students are so different, you know, well, people in general, of course, are also different with different personalities. And you just have to get a feel for that person and then go with it. The ones who like to talk a lot, and like you were saying, Tina, you just do a lot of over
And then others, you just have to have some prepared questions just to get the dialogue going,
Right.
because they're just more reticent and talking, and it just takes them more time to open up. But I think the important thing is really showing that you care and you're expressing an interest in someone, and I think they really appreciate that.
And I think another thing that we need to say, it sounds like all of you, at least those of you who have spoken up, are having really fantastic relationships. It's such a pleasure to, whenever we talk about foster care to success, and I think about it personally, I've been here for 13 years, I always think that the best thing we do of all is when we match a student with a coach and it really clicks. That student and that coach have something beyond price. It's really, really wonderful, and it's so good to hear of your good relationships. So does anybody, I would love to hear a little bit more, and I think otherwise we've been talking for about, or I've been talking for about 40 minutes. If we have any questions or comments or anything, I know we didn't really have a good agenda in this call, but if anybody has any questions or comments or anything.
This is Trudy.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
And I have a question. Have you ever had to reassign coaches and students because of whatever reason?
Yes, we have. Yes, we have, and if there is a reason, it certainly is not something that we do lightly. But yes, we have. We have, upon occasion, had a student who has requested a change. Upon occasion, we have had a coach who has gotten in over their head. So yes, we have done that. Not very often.
Okay.
This is Jeananne. I just wanted to say thank you. It's been really great to hear other people. I was thinking I was alone in my experience of being told, oh, it's fine, everything's great. And kind of thinking, well, maybe I was doing something wrong, but it's really great to hear kind of other people having similar experiences.
I think so too. This was absolutely wonderful to hear. And I will tell you again that your student who always says that everything is great, if you really develop this relationship, eventually we have we have what is it you call it? Confidentiality, and we will never say anything. But I will say that we have had twice. We had a student who was in quite an awful accident. A tree fell down and killed the person who was actually sitting next to her, and the first person that she called was her coach. And we had just recently a young woman who was actually kidnapped. Everything ended up fine, but when she was released, the first person she called was her coach. So truly, truly, these can be wonderful relationships. And if your student always says everything is fine, we all know you scratch below the surface and nothing is fine for any of us. I mean, you know, have a nice day and all of that is really kind of baloney for most people. But really, if you continue as you have been going, you are constant with your students, you care about them, you send them something occasionally in the mail, or you don't send them something in the mail, but you're there. If they need something, they will call on you, because you will be that one constant, that one rock in their life, and they will call on you when they need to. And if they don't need you, then they'll continue to be fine, and that works too.
So this is Becky, and I would just add a story from one of the young women I coached a couple of years ago, in case there's anyone on the line who isn't even hearing back. I think I called this young woman every Sunday at 5 o'clock for 8 weeks, and then I didn't call her one Sunday. I was running a little late, and she finally called me back. I had never heard back from her, and when I was late and didn't call her, you know, she was just used to getting that message. And so even though she didn't respond, it clearly, if you're calling people regularly, you are sending a message. And even
is a wonderful story, and next time I have to make a talk like this, I'm going to use it.
Yeah, that is a great one. It is.
So, well, if there is anything else anybody would like to share, if there's anything we have forgotten and you need to ask, otherwise I think we can probably say goodnight shortly.
This is Trudy again.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I had to feed the cat, so they're all screaming. But I wanted to say thank you to Shelley, Pat, and Tina for the encouraging words that you send our way. It helps.
You know, we have always said that your job is to support the students, and our job is to support you. So we do it with great joy.
Yep.
Oh, are we allowed to ask questions during this real quick?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I had a question. How detailed do you want feedback on some of the questions? I guess from our conversations, I'll just make sure I was kind of summarizing it accurately for your expectations.
You mean in the coach reports?
Yeah, yeah.
I would say that you should be as detailed as you feel necessary. You don't need to say, he was driving in his brown car that had a ripped seat and the back mirror was rusted. You don't need to say that unless you feel that for some reason it is pertinent. So whatever you feel is pertinent. If something comes up that is a problem or dangerous or your student has an issue, you can always, first of all, you can call us day or night.
Yep.
Pat and I have our cell phones by our beds, and we have been called by coaches in the middle of the night. We've been called by students in the middle of the night. So that goes without saying. If you need us, we are here, and we promise you that. But other than that, whatever you feel is of benefit for us to hear in the report is what we are glad to hear.
Cool, thank you.
All right, shall I raise my gavel? Going once, going twice. Thank you all very, very much for coming on this call. We really so much enjoy having the opportunity to talk with you all, and we'll talk with you next month, and in between now and then you will see Pat and my shiny faces on the website.
Have a good evening.
All right, good
Yeah,
night.
great.
Good night.